Well, if you're, corporations work really great when you've got the corporation's making more money than it's spending every year.
Well, everything works really great when you're making more money than you're spending.
It makes life easier when you're making more than you're spending. So I'm Steve.
I'm Riley.
Tax Force is our company. What's the segment called? The segment's called Teaching Riley.
Okay, so we did a previous video about a reason to get incorporated, and that was if you were taking on big debt. Right. And so today we thought we would do a video on another reason that you might want to think about getting incorporated, and that is if your business is expanding.
Right.
So why is that?
Another great question, Riley. So if your business is expanding, you're spending money, and when you're spending money, oftentimes you have to stockpile a little bit of money first.
Right.
To be able to make some of the big purchases, right? You need down payments for real estate. You need so much money down to be able to buy large pieces of equipment. And we're going to do a simplified explanation today, because when you buy new equipment, tax benefits do come along with that, right? For sure, right? You get depreciation on equipment. But let's say that you're into a spot where you're like, okay, in our example, we're going to assume that we're saving this year because we have to buy something next year.
Okay. And
it's that going over the tax years, because when you head into the next tax year, that means you got to pay some tax.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And along the same lines as the last video, it's the tax savings in the corporation that really make this beneficial. So in our example here, let's say that we need to save $50,000 for a down payment on something that we want to purchase, and that's going to be in the future, so next year or maybe even the year after that.
Okay.
So if you're running a sole proprietor or a partnership that's unincorporated, you're going to be, let's use a 48% tax rate.
Okay.
Depending on the province you live in Canada, and depending on how much money you're making, your tax rate could be anywhere between 15 and 53%.
Right.
But we'll use 48 today for our example.
Okay.
So if you need to have $50,000 next year, that means I got to make a bunch of money this year and pay some tax on that to still have $50,000 left over next year, right?
Right, but if you're being taxed at that, you're paying like almost half.
48%, it means you need to save $96,154 to give the government $46,154 and still have $50,000 left over.
Right.
That's a lot of tax.
That is a lot of tax.
If you're incorporated, again, depending on the province you're in Canada, let's use a 13% corporate tax rate. Interesting, side note, Saskatchewan just waived corporate taxes for the next 2 years.
Completely?
Completely. Wow. Provincially, you still have to pay the federal tax, but as part of getting through coronavirus, Saskatchewan's waived provincial tax under certain circumstances for the next 2 years. That's how much they're trying to help businesses out during the pandemic. So 13%. So in this case, you would only need to make $57,471 to pay $74.71 in tax and end up with $50,000.
Yeah, huge difference.
It's a huge difference. And when you really think about this in terms of sales, so if I have to make $57,000 and change in sales, net of expenses, versus $96,000 and change, that's a lot fewer sales that you have to make to still achieve the goal of having $50,000 to reinvest in your business after tax, right? And in fact, it's actually up over 40%. Think about it. 57 by 96 is just a little over 40% less sales that you actually have to make.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
It's a huge tax savings. It's a $38,683 tax savings because of the corporation versus the sole proprietorship or unregistered partnership. So that's it. This is where it helps you grow, because you literally have to make less money to be able to make the investments in your business, simply because you're paying less tax to the government through the corporation.
So basically, if you're expanding, and by that we mean like if you have a big purchase coming up or anything like that, really, right?
When you're growing, usually an indication of growing is that you're
making more money.
You're making more money.
Right.
And so if you've got that money in the bank and you're going to use that to reinvest in your business, the corporate structure just makes so much more sense.
If you're making more money, you're going to be spending more money, theoretically, to reinvest in your business. Makes sense.
Yep.
And so then why would you pay that much tax
Why would you pay the extra in tax? Now, if you're making it and spending it in the same year, it's maybe not
True.
as advantageous because the money's coming in and it's going right back out. But as you're expanding and as you're planning large purchases, it doesn't always happen in the same.
So this
tax
is maybe
year.
kind of when like tax planning comes in too. When you're thinking about
100%.
like when does it make sense to make these big purchases instead of just being like, oh, we need this, I'm going to buy this right now.
Right.
Thinking about can we wait and maybe purchase this next year, or what can we do to plan that?
That's part of it. And some, like today, because of the environment today, we made a purchase for one of our companies a couple of weeks ago. We're actually not going to get it till April. That's just how long it takes. So if that happens, like that's a long lead time.
Right.
So you could be making the buying decision today. You don't get the tax deduction until you actually take delivery of it.
Right.
Right. You need to have that asset. So it could very easily go over a tax year. And that could mean, you're paying all this extra tax while you're, building your cash position to be able to buy this.
Right.
So it's, when you realize that, buy today, well, you might not be able to do that. You can't just go into the store and buy some of these big pieces of equipment or make these kinds of investments without, those.
You might be able to
lead
make that
times.
purchase, but you're not actually going to get it.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to give you that deduction
And you
anyway.
don't get the deduction until you take delivery.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So as you grow, and this is where, as your business is growing and you're starting to make more investments in your business because of the lower tax rate in active corporations, it really, really helps fund that continued growth.